Hello, you guys. Welcome to this week's episode of the Expand and Evolve podcast. I'm your host, Carly Pinchin, and I'm so excited because we have a guest joining us this week, Nick Komodina. I'm so excited to hear from you. For those of you who don't know, he is a conscious business and leadership coach, and I stumbled across his Instagram feed actually through a friend had reposted something, and then I stumbled across your content, and I was sending reel after reel to people on my team, and I was like, you guys, this is so good. And you just led a team call for us, which was incredible. People are still talking about it. And I just thought it would be really cool to have you on. And obviously you can share some of your wisdom, but also I wanted to know more about you, how you got into this space. I know you came from fitness. And so maybe the transition of what led you to where you are now and a little bit about you and then whatever you want to kind of jump into from there.
Sure. Yeah. I'll try to give the spark notes and condense it. First of all, thanks for having me. I grew up very humble beginnings. It was just me and my mom. She was a single mother. We grew up in a trailer park. No real entrepreneur or leadership influence whatsoever. You know, my mom was very much go to your job, get your paycheck, shut up and save money. And I just always had this rebellious spirit to me, I guess, so to speak. And I just, the way that the world worked, I just always thought differently. And I always questioned, like, well, why do we all have to do that? Why can't we do it this way? And growing up, when I grew up, that just wasn't okay, you know. And so I got in a lot of trouble. I was always in the principal's office at school. I was always, and it wasn't until I graduated and I really got into fitness, I started personal training. And, again, long story short, just met up with this guy who owned a gym, and he just ended up being a really not great guy, just a really abusive leader. All the trainers feared him. That was how he led. He was very fear-based, and all the other trainers and I wanted to go somewhere else. And they all looked at me and said, yo, let's get out of here. And well, the owner found out, and he ended up firing us all via group text on like 10 p.m. on a Sunday night. It was crazy. And all of the trainers and all of the clients looked at me and said, Nick, what do we do? And I didn't know, but I had to figure it out. And I kind of got forced into the leadership entrepreneur role. I didn't really ask for it. And so I opened a gym in 30 days. That was like, we didn't have a choice, And so it was accidental. I accidentally became a leader and a business owner and ran that for 3.5 years. It was great. And then just kind of started hearing the trickles of the online coaching space. And I met two people at a fitness expo, and they asked me if I would prep them for a bodybuilding show, bikini show, 2 women online. And I said, I've never done it before, but I'll try. And their social media presence grew as they prepped and started looking better. And everybody started to see how much I was willing to give to the people I was working with. And that was it. And all I did was focus on my results. All I did was focus on serving. And then I started getting DMs. Hey, what do you charge? What do you charge? What do you charge? And I went, I don't know, $150. I had no concept of coaching prices. And eventually I had to make a decision. Do I stay in this small town with everyone I know where I'm the man? Because being in your early 20s, owning a gym, paying all your bills and having $2,000-$3,000 a month extra is like king status in a small town. And so it was, do I walk away from this, all this stability to pursue something that I know is a greater path for me? And in 30 days, I closed the gym, sold all the equipment, and moved to downtown San Diego. So in the span of a week, my living expenses doubled and my income cut by 70%. So I looked at my situation and I said, well, realistically, I have 2 months to make this work or I'm homeless. And so that's what I did. And 2 years later,
how old were you when you decided to make the move?
I think that was 2017.
Okay.
I think I was like 23, 24.
Yeah. Because I feel like 2017 is when, 2016, 2017 is when the online space and fitness was just like shooting up.
Oh my gosh. It was parabolic.
Like, it was getting crazy.
It was crazy. I mean, I would say swipe up to fill out my application for coaching and get 150 applications in a day. And I knew nothing about business, so I would just leave them there. I would just leave them there for when I wanted to. I never capitalized. I mean, now I look back at it, I'm like, oh, man, I really fucked up.
No,
But,
same.
just kept my head down and started hiring staff and learning to trust people in my business, and looked up one day and we had a 7-figure coaching business with a ton of employees and just amazing results. And it was great. But along that path, I really started pursuing business as a way to prove my worth to the world. I really started looking at the money that I was making as a way to prove to my girlfriend at the time that I was worthy of her to love me. And, her and I got in a relationship. We bought a home in Texas together, and it just got really bad. I really pedestaled her. I didn't know who I was. And I thought I have to make a lot of money in order to provide. And that's the only thing that a man is worthy of, is just how much he makes. And it got toxic. Again, I ignored red flags. She started cheating on me. I couldn't stand up for myself, but I felt awful. So I started cheating on her. And then it was just this really malicious cycle. And basically everything eventually just came crumbling down. I found out, she found out, and it was just this massive thing. And I realized in that moment that I was about to lose this life that I had created for myself. And I didn't know who I was without it. I had created and become addicted to a life that I hated, but I didn't know who I was without it. And so the thought of losing that life, losing my identity, it felt like I was dying. It felt like death, because it was. And so that night I walked out to my backyard at 3 a.m. with my gun, and I held the gun barrel to my head and I was ready to pull the trigger. But I heard a voice in my backyard say no. And it spooked me, and I turned around and it broke me out, and nobody was there. And it was weird. And so I packed up my stuff. I moved back to San Diego, and I kind of committed to myself for 4 months. I wasn't going to do anything in regards to business. I was going to let my business crumble because I didn't want the money. I didn't want the physique. I had been doing steroids at the time to get big so that she would be attracted to me. And I fasted for 3 weeks and came off steroids cold turkey to just let my body eat itself away. I just didn't want any remnants of the old life in me
Which
anymore.
is super intense for people listening like that.
Super intense.
That don't understand steroids. I'm like, that's intense.
It was very stupid.
Were you well? Like, were you okay?
I mean, I'm alive. I'm here.
Yeah.
Still, still a little bit on TRT. I'm trying to titrate off, but there's a lot. I ran a lot of steroids for a long time, but yeah, I knew that this part of my life, everything that I had built was because of me. And I just had to take full ownership of it, instead of the blame game of how could she possibly cheat on me and betray me and him, and because he was one of my really good friends. And instead of that, I said, well, where in my life do I continue to betray myself? And as I started just taking all the questions inward, and I started asking myself the questions I didn't really want to ask, I started finding a lot of answers I didn't really want to find, but they allowed me to heal. They allowed me to let go of stuff, and they allowed me to slowly start to see a vision of what the next path for me was. And I went to this church retreat. Wasn't a man of God whatsoever, no religion, but I had 3 different friends all text me a link to this men's retreat within 5 minutes of each other. None of them knew each other. They just, hey man, I think you should go. Hey, I think you should go. And I went, okay, I'm going to go. And I go to this retreat, and 3,000 men in this tent. And the head pastor says, put your hands in the air. The Holy Spirit's in the tent. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I'll close my eyes. And I just said, God, if you're real, I really need to know right now. And right as I said that, somebody behind me grabbed my arm to turn me around, and I shook away, and I opened my eyes, and I looked, and nobody was around me. And I just got massive chills. I get chills every time I tell that story.
I had them too.
Yeah, I got chills, and I went, okay. And I closed my eyes again, and I said, then why did I just lose everything? Why did you just rip everything out of my life? And he said very distinctly to me, because you weren't paying attention. It's like, okay.
What year was this?
This was 2022.
Okay. Because I've been feeling like in this last season, I keep saying anything built out of the ego has to die. And if you don't start listening, it's all going to crumble. And I'm like, that's such a representation of that exact thing, where it's like, yes, you can build the business, you can have the relationship, you can have all the things. But I'm sure this is why you added the word conscious. If you did it unconsciously, it kind of like you had to bring awareness back to you and like how the energy you were probably building it out of and the intention and all of it, which is just so powerful. And that you found a relationship to God in that moment. Okay, keep going. But I just needed to know for
Yeah,
myself.
no, I mean, your business is a reflection of you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, he said, you weren't paying attention. And I instantly knew what he meant, and I was like, God damn it. Oh, sorry. I mean, damn it. And he was like, hey, what I'm asking you to do next is too big for you. I need you to prioritize a relationship with me so I can walk with you, because I need you to know what it feels like to have a father's unconditional love.
Mm,
Because my dad was never around.
that was.
And
Mm-hmm.
And so that really hit me hard, and I surrendered to it. And I said, okay, God, show me the path and I'll walk it. Show me what you need from me and I will serve you. And that was when I got the pull. I said, man, maybe I should start just mentoring some entrepreneurs who want to learn to build their business a more spiritually conscious way. And I had a lot of credentials, I guess, for lack of a better word, for people that had seen what I had built in the industry. So I went on my Instagram and I said, hey, I'm looking for some coaches to mentor one-on-one. Message me if you're interested. And I was in my angel number era. So I was charging $11 a month. And I ended up signing 28 people within the first week. And so that was a really big confirmation to me of, man, if I really just surrender and I move where God is trying to move me, that's the path of the divine. It's the path of light. And that's where wealth exists. So I created a $30,000 a month business in a week just by owning and really surrendering to that truth that was being led to me. And as I started coaching these entrepreneurs, I started realizing, hey, I'm taking people through very similar steps, or everybody's in at least one of these few phases when they come to me. And I kept trying to prove it wrong, and I kept proving myself right. And I developed this thesis and these phases and this whole cycle program, whatever you want to call it, this method, if you will. And I thought, okay, I can start teaching this at scale. We can really start impacting people. And so I created my mastermind, and that was crazy. I mean, it's almost 2 years old now. And in year one, it was a brand new offer and a brand new niche. And we did $1 million in the first year, all organic, no DMs, no cold outreach, no emails, no ads, no anything. It was just walking the path, speaking the truth, having the conviction and getting the results. And the money takes care of itself, we find, when we really build a brand that stands for something. And so we've created multiple tiers of the program now for where people are at. And our whole thing is build $1 million business in 3 years. That's kind of our whole thing. But now the question is, who do you need to become in those 3 years? Who do you need to let go of? How much do you need to heal? Who do you need to forgive? And really, how much do you need to serve the world first before you get to that $1 million business? So the equation that we do is, cool, you want to make $1 million in 3 years? How do we give away $10 million of value to your audience in that time frame? That's really the ticket. But you can't give value to people until you start to actually become somebody of value. And that comes from healing. That comes from really, really letting go of all of the stories and all of the people in the past trauma that has convinced you that you're not worthy, that has kept you stuck in scarcity and fear. Because when we're in fear, we're in our survival paradigm. We can't help but feel selfish. We can't help but look at somebody on the other end of an Instagram conversation and think, this person's money. And so we start to be very manipulative and very energetically transactional with people. Instead of serving them to serve them, we're serving them so they pay us. And that ends up becoming manipulation, really. Yeah. So that's kind of here we are today. And now I'm on Carly's podcast.
Yeah, which I think it's so great, because had you still been doing fitness too, I wouldn't have found you. And I feel like that was what I started in. I was in fitness. I was doing the swipe up link because I was doing fitness coaching. People were asking me the same thing. They're like, hey, can you train me? Hey, can you prep me for a show? Because I did bikini. And it just became this business on like almost overnight. And I agree with you. Like, Instagram back then was different. Like you could literally put up a link and I would have hundreds of people that were like, I'm interested, I'm doing it. Where now selling on the space is so different. So for you to be able to build your new business with a new offer to 1 million is huge, because it's not, I don't feel like it's the same as it was back then to have people that are
No.
just quickly like, I'm in. There's so much selling now that I feel like people are more, they really need that trust. And so it's like you had given enough value and trust for them to be in right away, which shows how much you had put out there, because had you not built that trust, it doesn't happen like that. And I
No.
think for so many people, they hope it does. Like they are ready and they have confidence and they're finally going to put out their first offer. But like you said, if you haven't provided 10 times the amount of value as what you're trying to get in that offer, then good luck. Because I think so many people, there's too many people selling. So it's like you really do have to give something different for them to be like, okay, I'm willing and I want to work with you and I'm happy and willing to give you that money.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to, go ahead.
I was just one note on that is the real recession that we have right now is a trust recession.
Mm-hmm.
We have a massive lack of trust, and we have a massive overflow of entitlement. So you get new online business owners who have a conversation with somebody one time, and that person doesn't trust them enough to convert. And that person, the online business owner, goes, "Oh, it's not my ideal client. My ideal client takes action immediately. My ideal client doesn't need any, they just know they want to work with me." No, that's not really how it works anymore. You need to stop being a fucking child, and you need to actually understand what's happening from a market and a macroeconomical standpoint. Is yes, there's so many more online business owners. There's so many people selling, but there's also so many people not fulfilling on promises. There is an equal amount of an upswing of people scamming other people being told one thing on the end of the phone, and once they get their credit card, they're thrown away and they feel like a number. This is what you are up against, is a massive fear complex. So you need to take time to build trust with people in your audience and stop trying to push them the first time you talk to them to get them on a call. It's just not going to work the way that it used to.
Mm-hmm. That's so true. Because I always used to do phone calls, and people still sometimes ask me, they're like, how do you do it now? I'm like, I don't know. I guess it isn't as quick. Like I found people really were so eager to get on the phone before. But again, what you're saying is so true, because you have to be actually delivering the thing that you're saying. And then that rebuilds that trust too, of knowing, okay, like now I know that what you say aligns with what you're actually offering me. Because I'm guilty of that in the past, where I took on way too many people, and everything that I promised them, I couldn't coach them in the way that I was used to, because it happened so fast. And I lost business that way, because I was like, oh, amazing, I'm taking in all these people, but I couldn't upkeep it. I didn't have a team. I was trying to do it alone. And so I lost trust in people then. And I feel like, again, it's, of course, I've rebuilt that now, but it can happen that way. And so if you're listing and you own a business, remember to actually deliver that value that you had promised to get them to make the sale in the first place. Because that's only half the battle. It's like making the sale, and then it's actually delivering what you said. Is there anything else you wanted to say on that?
No, I think I'm good with that.
Yeah. I wanted to go back to, because you putting the gun to your head, I was not expecting that. And
Me
so,
neither.
yeah, well, and then I'm like, I obviously had no idea. But in that moment, you chose not to. I feel like there's a bunch on this, because I think this is something that more than we realize, men, especially when they feel suicide is just a higher rate in men. And so I don't know if you want to speak on that at all, and if you've discovered more people that are like, holy crap, I had a moment like that also. But I know quite a few men in my life who have had those moments. And so I'm just thinking, if you want to speak on that, but then also, did you seek guidance, help, mentoring right away? Or was it just kind of you with you and guiding yourself through the process?
Yeah, these are all really good questions. And so, yeah, I've encountered plenty of men in my career so far since then that have been suicidal. And I think we have this we just have a very weird view on helping people in society, where if a man came to me and expressed that he was suicidal, I actually become burned at the stake for helping him, because we don't have a psychology degree. We didn't go to school and get the exact piece of paper that people deem acceptable to help these people. And I'm very accredited. I've done plenty of programs, plenty of certifications. I understand people, and I know how to get somebody out of a dark place. But because it's not done the way that's socially acceptable by the masses, we take a lot of heat for it. And I'm cool with that. People have tried to cancel me for years. Keep going. But what happens is that men finally open up to somebody about this, and we typically go, you need to see a therapist. And when we say you need to see a therapist, there's this subconscious internalization that you're broken. And so now a man goes, well, I don't want to be broken, so I'm not going to go to therapy. I'm just going to internalize it. The one person that I opened up to pushed me aside and tried to push me somewhere else. And really, when a man opens up to you, he's saying, hey, I don't trust anyone else. And in this moment right now, you're who I'm trusting and looking to for guidance. Can you help me? And people need to learn how to lean into that a little bit more and just have a human conversation sometimes, instead of just defaulting in the, hey, this isn't my scope, go on and get out of here. But there's a big reason why because I have a men's group to support. I have a men's group called Kinggard. It's only $45 a month. Like, I try to just make it as easy as possible for men to come in and get that support, leadership support, that real divine masculine guidance. And it's like, hey, how do we show up in relationships to where we're really embodied in our masculine? How do we lead? How do we express our emotions? How do we take control of them? Because we really just push it all down, and we look for these excuses to let it out. And when a man internalizes all of his emotions, he feels conquered by them. And when a man feels like the world is conquering him, he's going to look for the easiest thing to conquer next to give him a sense of power back. And unfortunately, typically that shows up in the form of abusive women, because women can be very timid and very easy to conquer by a man who feels this way. And so this is where we start going down a path of, sexual assaults and rapes. And I hate that that's the truth, but it is the truth. And so I get a lot of heat when I say stuff like this, because people like to misinterpret what I'm saying. And I realize it's a really sensitive topic, but I really do work on the thesis that women's safety can actually never be a priority until men's healing is a priority, because women need safety from unhealed men. So it's kind of like, instead of dealing with an active shooter, we just give everybody a bulletproof vest. And, like, oh, we need to protect kids, so they should wear bulletproof vests when they go to school. Well, no, we should do something better so that active shooters just don't happen. But nobody wants that conversation, because that side of the conversation seems impossible. And so my goal is, like, how do we make that possible? And I think that's the question to ask. Like, how do we just continue to provide safe spaces for men to feel and express, and really teach them how to be in their divine masculine? Because the divine masculine is wealthy. The divine masculine is a provider. He is a protector. He is emotionally in tune, and he doesn't need anybody's approval to feel that. And that's really what women want in a partner.
Did you find, because like going back to, she was cheating on you, you ended up cheating on her. Were you in that state of your life where, I think this is common for a lot of men, they think, well, I'm providing money, like, what else could you want from me?
Totally. That was
aren't I doing what you needed? Like, I pay for things.
100%.
And obviously with this whole conversation on divine masculine, where I think it's opening up so much more that it's like, hey, no, sorry, we're living in a different era now of time where we need more from you. Like, at one point in time, yes, you paying for things, people were okay with that. But I feel like now women can make money. So it's not so much like we only need you for that. They are looking for the emotional support, companionship, all of these things. And for you in that relationship, I'm sure it ending kind of showed you, like, and when you started asking those deeper questions, like, wait, how did I contribute to this? Who was I being, and who do I need to be? Is that when you started finding, obviously, as you started healing through wanting to, off yourself, to moving through that, was it very much realizing, like, wow, I was showing up and thinking everything was about my business and that I was providing, it was good enough. And then noticing, shit, like, I wasn't actually there for her emotionally or for her other needs. And like, how did you move through that? Because I think so many men, at least in my life, I talk to women all the time who they're in that phase where they've started the healing. They are doing the work. And then the men sometimes feel almost inadequate because they feel lost. They don't know how to keep up. They don't know how to start accessing their emotions. Like, okay, I hear what you're saying, but like, I don't know how to do that. Was there anything that helped you? And obviously I want to link your men's group, because I think that could be a great start for people.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Like, how did you start navigating that and noticing this about yourself? Did you dive into work? Like, was it books? Was it podcasts? Was it mentors? Or was it,
Yep. I studied under David Dieta. I studied
I was
under
just going to ask that if that's who you studied under.
Under GS
Mhm.
Youngblood. And GS was an amazing mentor. Holy crap. I mean, David's stuff is truly revolutionary. And he has a really incredible mind. And so does GS. And I just think GS's method of even just speaking, and we would conversate on coaching calls and stuff. He just like really hit me in the way that I needed to be hit, really. And that's all there is to it.
Mhm.
And, I had recognized beforehand that there was this subconscious trauma that my mom had given me without knowing, where I remember her complaining about my dad being a piece of
Mhm.
shit for not paying child support and that he couldn't take care of his family. So I internalized, well, a man is a piece of shit if he's not financially giving money for his family. So my
Mhm.
love language for my partner was to work. And it wasn't that I was dissociated. It was like, I love you so much. And so I'm going to stay up until 2 a.m. to work. And I
Mhm.
couldn't understand when they said all I cared about was work. I'd say, no, all I care about is you. What do you mean? And there was this disconnect. And I never understood intimacy. When I would make love to my partner, there was no love involved. It was just this like primal get it done and move on.
Mhm.
And so there was no emotional safety. There was no presence. There was no emotional intelligence. There was no depthful conversation. There was no, I was very reactive like a child. And so men, when they're wounded, they get into this little boy energy. And when the feminine has a problem and starts to nitpick or nag or yell at him, he usually yells back. And that's really how we can know that a man is wounded in his masculine. He takes the thing the feminine says personally. So I had to really learn, I don't have to take this personally. It's my job to actually hold space for that feminine chaos and kind of hear what she's saying behind the words. The
Mhm.
words are irrelevant. You're upset because I didn't do this, and that made you feel like you didn't care, or that I didn't care.
Mhm.
That's the conversation to have. It doesn't matter if she says, you're a piece of shit, you're so lazy, you never do this. I can't. I hurt you by not doing that. I understand. And that was so hard for me to get to a place like that. But that was really what I needed. And it was like I got handed this like super suit once I
Mhm.
really all this clicked. And the ability to navigate relationships with women, it was life changing when I
Mhm.
found it out, because I realized, I don't actually need a woman for me to be worthy. I don't need a woman here for me to be safe or for me to be masculine. I actually do that by how I show up for everyone in my life, always, including myself.
Mhm.
And that's really what men need. Is I got to heal my own feminine inside of me. I got to
Mhm.
feel my own, or heal my own mother wounds, and stop projecting them on the romantic partners that I have in my life.
Mhm. How did you discover for you, did you end up using plant medicine? Was it just that brotherhood retreat? Like, what did you go to that allowed you to dive deeper into this work?
Honestly, it was just conversations with myself.
Mm.
I've really, and sure, plant medicines have helped.
Yeah.
I'm an avid psychedelic user. Psilocybin was my thing for a really long time. I've sat with 5-MeO DMT a few times. I've sat with Changa a few times. Um, love acid, love LSD. That's my guy now.
Yeah.
Um, but basically I've been a student of the medicine for a really long time, and I think people tend to abuse the medicine
Yeah.
as a way to spiritually bypass doing the work, because it's really, and I used to do this. It's really easy for me to have a shroom experience and then say, oh, I get it now. I'm so evolved. I
I'm
don't
so
have
enlightened.
my ego dissolved. And really what happens is you create the spiritual ego, and the
Mhm.
ego's like, oh, I'm spiritual now, which means I'm better than you. And and so we think we dissolve this ego, but really the ego just evolves and gets trickier and more sneaky, and then it's just there all the same. So it was just over the course of time of actually integrating and putting into practice what I was learning instead of just talking about it.
Mhm.
That
Right.
and it was just exposure therapy, and it was time. It was time and reps.
Right. Because I think I I find this too, because I've been on a plant medicine journey where even the last one I went to, I knew I didn't need it, but I was like helping a group do it. And
Hmm.
I went, this is where people could fall into abusing it, where they are like, oh, I've just seen more and I just see more. Like maybe there's more to know. Where it's like, no, there comes a time where it's actual integration. You need to live a normal human life with human beings,
Hmm.
integrate through relationships. And then how are you showing up? Because you can gain all this knowledge and awareness about yourself, but how are you shifting it in the real world? And obviously that takes time, application, and practice in actual relationship. Um, Amazing. I love that. Also, what was the name of the person that you said you worked with outside of David Dieta? I want to make sure I note that.
G.S. Youngblood. He wrote a book called The Masculine in Relationship.
Okay.
And in my opinion, it is a Bible. It's a
Okay.
Bible for men who are in a relationship. Truly.
Amazing.
Changed my
Okay.
life. I've read it like 9 times.
Love. Okay. Because I read The Way of the Superior Man, and even that was like, yes, 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 like
That's a
so
good
much.
book.
Yeah.
Shoot, there's another one that's really good. Intimate Communion is an
Mm.
incredible book. It's also by David.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never
So
heard of it.
those would be the ones that I really recommend for people if they're looking to deepen their sense of relationship and the masculine and feminine energies.
Amazing. Okay. And then moving from that, because obviously that's been a couple years. When was that? You said about 2022. So you've had
Yeah,
a
it was
couple
this
years.
very beginning of 2022.
Right. So I feel like that's still fresh, right? For to be able to be moving through all of this, but then engaging it. Have you been in a relationship since where you've seen the differences of how you show up?
Yes. I didn't mean to say that 3 times.
Yeah.
I yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
I dated my most recent partner. She
Yeah.
was amazing. I mean, we just had such we were what each other needed to really finish the cycle of healing.
Mm.
And I think we both really recognized that. And she just kind of mirrored back to me the parts of myself where I still didn't stand up for myself in
Mhm.
relationships. And I just felt with her like I was really asking for the bare minimum and I wasn't getting it, but I was still staying. And that was my
Mm.
final kind of like, oh, I'm not valuing myself to walk away when I'm not getting. Got it. I'm just sitting here. And the longer you sit in a place that doesn't feel in alignment with what you deserve, the more
Mm.
chaos will ensue. So I made the decision to walk away and kind of set us both free. And that from there was just like the most profound healing for both of us. And yeah, now I have an incredible partner and she's
Mhm.
everything I could ever ask for.
Amazing.
And we're great.
Yeah. And I think even touching on that, because I was recently single and I feel like I have a lot of people who are not in relationship who listen to this. And I think knowing that you can do all this work and then sometimes partners are going to come before the one that's meant to really work to show you. And I feel like I had that too, where it was like, dang, you think you've done all this work, but you're still not standing up for yourself and you're still not saying what you really want because you're so, oh, it's okay. And like making sure they're okay versus being like, no, this is really throwing me off. So
Mm,
I love that because I think sometimes then we think there's still something wrong with us if a relationship doesn't work, but sometimes there's lessons that need
yeah.
to be learned in that relationship itself.
It's
Um,
it's it's also really easy to convince yourself that you're healed when you've
yes,
isolated yourself from the thing that triggers you. So
correct.
I'm not going to date for 2 years and I'm going to heal. You're never going to heal the relationship wounds until you're back in a relationship.
So true.
I don't care how much ayahuasca you drink. When you get back into an intimate relationship, all those triggers are still going to be there and you have to work through them with a partner. That is
Right.
why partners are there.
Okay, no, so true because I've seen that too where people are like, I've just been single and celibate for 9 years. And I'm like,
Yeah. That sucks.
nope.
That sounds awful. That just sounds like the worst 9 years ever.
I'm like,
You're so spiritual. Wow. I love that. I've not done that and I feel great. So,
right. I know. I understand because obviously the celibacy thing, when you get into the spiritual community, I feel like that's a conversation. And I get it. If you've been abusing it for a long time, there comes a place where maybe you do need to set a boundary with
sure. I
yourself.
mean, I did a celibacy journey and it was life
Yeah.
changing for me. I think all men, and usually when new men join
Yes.
my container, I tell them semen retention and celibacy for 6 months.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's brutal for them.
Yeah.
Brutal. But
6 months is a long time.
I gotta desexualize their mind if they actually want to become the man necessary to be wealthy.
Okay, wait, talk about this because this is so interesting. I had a guy on a couple weeks ago and he talked about this too, the semen retention. He's like, men are going to hate me. Women, this is going to be the best thing I've ever told you. And he started talking about this. But I feel like people still don't really know about what this is. So why don't you talk about it a little bit, and the desexualizing the mind and the value
Sure.
and importance of that?
Sure. Yeah. Whenever I teach new men in my space, and a lot of times people are like, well, what does that have to do with entrepreneurship? What does that have to do with business coaching? And I say it's literally everything, because who we are is reflected back to us in our business. I have a lot of men who work with me, and I just had a conversation with my client, one of my men clients this morning, and he wants to do all this divine masculine coaching. And I was like, dude, you can't go more than a week without sleeping with a woman, even though I've told you not to for the last 6 months. How is that divine masculine? Enlighten me. And you didn't have anything to say. And I was like, you're not going to scale your business because you're living a lie. It's just that simple. And so when we look at things, and I'll ask new men, I go, when's the last time that you had sex and you didn't come? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, when's the last time that you had sex and you didn't get off? And they're like, it's never happened. And I'm like, well, do you realize, do you realize how much that happens to women? How many times do you think you've had sex with a woman and she hasn't gotten off? I'm like, oh, I get them off every time. I'm like, you don't. You don't. I promise. And so it's like just this one question, they realize like, holy crap. And it's like, well, so are you having sex to pleasure a woman, or are you having sex to pleasure yourself? And then right there's another conversation. There's another just shift, another different perspective. And then it's like, well, how do you feel after you ejaculate? And they're like, oh, I'm pretty tired for the rest of the day. Like, yeah. So why do you keep doing it every 2 days for women that you don't even know? And no wonder you're not motivated in your business. No wonder you can't get a pump at the gym. No wonder you're on 3 energy drinks throughout the day. All of that life force energy that you use to create with, you're wasting on a towel. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
or
so
quick pleasure that's like not connected at all.
So when we just start to challenge a man, the reason I do celibacy is because when I tell a man semen retention and he's like, oh, I could totally have sex and not do that. And he just, it's not, it takes a lot of practice to be able to engage sexually with a female and not have a man ejaculate, because that's what he's programmed and conditioned to do. And so,
well, even on the female side, I've talked about this with friends where it's like, if they don't, you think there's something wrong with you. So it's like opening the conversation to be like, actually, there's benefits here also, and not thinking, oh my God, I didn't do my job because you didn't come.
Right. Well,
it's a real thing.
And so what if just the opposite was true? What if the whole conversation was, hey, the goal is for the woman to finish, actually. And so if that becomes the conversation, men can actually have sex 5-6 times a day if they don't finish, and their testosterone's through the roof. Their desire for their partner is through the roof, and they have this sense of, well, domination. And I mean that in a very respectful way. When you're dominating your partner multiple times a day and you're not losing the life force energy, you are charging yourself up to feel like a man, to feel like you can conquer, to feel like you want to create. And you are really in this divine creative state, really. And
doesn't it up your testosterone like 300% by not? Or something crazy?
Those studies aren't amazing. The studies really show that after a week of retention, you don't get many more testosterone benefits, right? It's not like this compounding thing where like if I don't ejaculate for 5 years, I'll have 2,000 levels of testosterone. It just doesn't work like that, you know. But there's a lot to be said for abstaining from the thing that you've been addicted to doing to feel an escape. So a lot of times men go and distract themselves sexually. And when a man ejaculates, it's the closest thing he'll experience to death. When he ejaculates, there's this massive release. All the tension in his body's gone. He lets out a sigh. Its life force energy leaves. And for like 2 minutes, he just sits in pure bliss. That's really addicting to a man that doesn't know who he is. That's really addicting to a man that feels like he's worthless because he can't get his shit together financially, for a man who doesn't understand his purpose. So what he does is he goes and uses the feminine as a tool to escape. And that is abuse of the feminine. And so there also becomes a subconscious shame and guilt associated with it, because deep down, the divine king inside of every man knows this is wrong. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have casual sex with people. I'm not saying that you can't date and have a good time. I'm
Right.
saying if I tell you not to do something for 30 days and you can't do it, that's an addiction.
That's such a good way to put it. Because think about how many things, because I think it's so normalized. And I've always had a thing where I think, especially pornography, where people are like, it's totally fine, it's normal. And I'm like, do you know what it's really impacting and doing to you? And then
Yeah, it's
how
not
many men,
normal.
that's what they do every single day. It's porn and jacking off, and they think that there's no correlation to how that's impacting their life, and then also the relationships that they're in. And I don't know. I think it creates heaps and heaps of problems in relationship
Totally.
and men globally. I'm like, yeah, no wonder you can't find your purpose or make any money. All you're doing is
Well,
watching porn and jacking off every day. So you feel like everything's
1000%.
fine. You have no desires. You have nothing to chase because you're alone in your house.
Right. You're letting go of the energy that you create with, so you don't feel creative. And our body, our unconscious mind gets into patterns, it gets into routines. And so I've worked with men like this where they always masturbate in the shower. And when we start talking, they realize, holy shit, every time I go and just turn the water on in my shower, I automatically get hard. Because the body
Wow.
starts to anticipate, oh, okay, I know what's going, this is routine. So
Mm,
we create addictions in the mind, but also addictions in the body. And now you're trapped in this loop, this cycle. Your body is actually controlling you, which means you no longer have a destiny.
mm. Okay, let's talk about this. So the men that you help kind of hone this back in, do you find that all of a sudden their creative force is back? They start to improve, whether it's in business, in life, in other areas of their life? Like, what have you seen happen so that if there are men listening, they can know there's actual benefits here, even though this sounds like torture?
Absolutely. I've seen men. I mean, here's the thing is we have multiple programs. All of our programs, the 3D tangible thing is making more money, right? I have never seen a man do this and not make more money. Real
Mm,
shit. I have never seen a man do this and not make more money. I've never seen a man do this and not feel better about himself, have a higher energy, higher states of consciousness, better conversations, start to have boundaries with women, and you start to feel empowered because you look at these women that you used to use as an escape.
mm,
You've actually had conversations with yourself now because you can't distract, and you've gotten to the bottom of them. And now you no longer need to escape yourself because you've started to master yourself. You look at these women and you see them and you start to have boundaries and you say, that is not worth my energy for who I am. You start to treat
mm,
yourself like a king and you start to act like a king. You start to walk like a king. You start to create like a king. You start to eat like a king. You start to make money like a king, all
mm.
because you've decided to cut off the peasants, if you will. You silence the noise and you bunker down and you come back home to yourself. And that's really what this is. And again, this is, I'm not going to sit here and say that I haven't had a single life while I've been in Austin.
Yep.
I've actively dated. I've had great times with great women, but there's not a need for me to do it in order to feel like a man. There's not a
Right.
need for me to go out and do it with a way to escape. I'm not
Mhm.
anxiously awaiting this woman's approval sexually. And that, again, my whole thing. If it's not a problem, go 30 days without it. You
Right.
can't. So it's a problem.
Yeah. For me, I'm just thinking I'm like probably coffee and bread are
Yep.
mine.
I do no caffeine, no sugar for the first 30 days when a new student enters my program.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's so true because if you go back to the fitness, when you did fitness, like these are things that you learned. And when you drop them, you feel so powerful because you're like,
Mm-hmm.
none of this shit can control me. I'm
Yep.
in control. I have the power. I get to decide. And I swear that's what taught me discipline was my first
Yep.
competition and realizing all this stuff that I thought had power over me, this food or saying yes or no to these things. It was like, no, you have all the power within you to decide. And it taught me discipline that I've been able to apply in every business since then to this day. And I feel like for people who have never had to do that, because of course you can make money and be successful and never take care of your health. But when you cut those things, you learn
Well,
how powerful you are
I think we have
and
to
or what's been controlling you this whole time.
I think we have to define success first to be able to say that, because
Right. Making
my,
money, I should have said.
yeah, you can get rich, but you
Yeah.
will never be wealthy.
Yes.
you will never be wealthy. Wealth to me is health, wealth, and relationships all combined into one.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have your health and you're a billionaire, you're broke. Doesn't matter. Because a billionaire who's sick and on his deathbed only has one wish, and it's to be as healthy as the man who's living in poverty. And so in that moment, the man who's making $30,000 a year has more value to his life than the billionaire about to die. That billionaire would give all of his money away to be making that $30,000 a year and be able to have 20 more years of his life. And we have life so backwards. We have it so backwards. We think that our life will have meaning when we make money. And it's like, your life has meaning right now. You're already somebody. Like, I want to be somebody. You already are somebody. And to think that your purpose is anywhere else than right here in this moment is exactly why you feel anxious, exactly why you feel behind, and exactly why you feel rushed. So I'm living my purpose right now because the only thing that is in my life right now is this podcast. If I'm in this podcast worrying about what's happening in an hour, I'm not present. I'm not in my purpose. This is my purpose right here, right now, because it's what's in front of me in my life. If your kids are in front of you right now, you are fulfilling your deepest purpose by being fully present with them. If you are working for somebody else, you are fulfilling your deepest life's purpose by being fully present in that work and being the best at it that you can possibly be to develop the skills that maybe will allow you to go start your own business later. Everything is your life. You're a somebody right now. And until you recognize that, you'll never get to where you want to be if you don't accept that where you want to be is right now.
The presence. So true. I feel like this is the perfect way to end you talking about wealth, because I've talked about this before too, like the 3 things in human mastery it's health, relationships, finances, business, whatever.
Yep.
But truly understanding that they're all correlated, and if one is off, it's going to impact the other in some way. And so it really is like attempting to build, heal, grow until you master all 3. But when you think of wealth, because you did an amazing call about the wealth principles or whatever you called it, if you just want to talk about what that means to you, and if there's anything in that regard you just kind of want to share before we end.
Yeah, I think to me, wealth is truth. Wealth is the path of light. So if you are hiding in the shadows of your own life, you will never be wealthy. You will continue to experience poverty because the shadow is scarcity. And that's where shame exists. And when you feel shame, you want to separate. And when you separate, you are in scarcity by definition. What I want is separate of me, scarcity. So shame is the path. Now, wealth is the path of the light. And what I mean by that is when you own your truth and you deliver that truth to the world in a way to serve the world, you will always have everything that you can possibly need. Wealth is about freedom. Wealth is about authenticity. Wealth is about walking into a room and not having any secrets. Wealth is about doing what you were put here to do on this earth and not letting your ego sabotage you and keep you to play small. So we have our light mission, if you will, and we have our shadow mission, if you will. And the light mission, that's the mission that was given to you by the divine. That is the soul's calling. That is where you know you're meant to deliver a universal truth to the world, and your business is a vehicle for that truth. The shadow mission is the vision where you're chasing the money, the cars, the fame. And it's the ego's way of keeping you small. It's the ego's way of keeping you off the divine path because it feels safer, or you're chasing these surface level desires, yachts, girls, bottles, watches. And what's funny is typically when people go all in and surrender to their light path, they'll have all of the things that they would get on their shadow path as well. But the shadow path just seems faster. It seems easier. It seems more prevalent when we haven't healed.
So I just had a thought come up. I was wondering if you want to say anything on this. You probably see this too, because I think you come from a place where you knew it was your role to provide and make money. I'm coming against a lot of women who are with men who have no desire to make more. And so the women are actually having to come in and pick up the slack to cover the additional bills, to pay off the debt, to get them the life that they really want, because the men there's no purpose, there's no vision, there's no mission. Yeah. So what do you recommend, whether it's for the women or what you end up doing? Because do men like this ever join your program, or do they not even come to you because they don't have the
Well,
design in the first place?
that's the exact transformation I give men in Kinggard. That's why I
Okay.
created it, because the way that I look at it is this. When we, back in the days when we went to war, right? The number one goal of war was to protect the king.
Mm,
And if the king dies, what happens? We lose the war. Now nobody's protecting the king. The king is fully taking all of these hits to himself. He doesn't protect himself. Nobody protects him. Nobody takes care of him. And so what happens is he dissociates. What
mm,
happens is he walls himself off to protect himself and be safe. He starts to drop into the energy of apathy.
mm.
And really what happens is that divine king inside of him has fallen asleep. That's it. And so it's not that the men are doing this maliciously or
No.
lazily. It's ignorance. They don't know that they're asleep. They have shut
Mm,
themselves off to who they really are. Nobody's protecting them anymore because nobody knows how to get to them.
mm.
That's why I created Kinggard, because I know how to
Okay.
get to them. I've been there. But the easiest thing that can start is that men want to feel, above all else, respected.
Yeah.
That is the key to a man's heart. He doesn't want to, he wants to feel loved. We're still like, ladies, we love massages. We love flowers. We love gifts. We love it. Even if we say we don't, we do. It means a lot.
Yeah.
But complimenting a man on how much you respect him for something that he does will ensure that he does more of it. And the same goes
Hmm.
for men, for their women, right? You compliment somebody on what you want more of. But
Hmm.
coming up to your man and saying, honey, I don't tell you enough, but I really respect you for how hard you work to provide for this family.
Hmm.
And that right there is just, you have no idea how much just something like that can really wake a man up. And spike him. You guys are partners. Give him a layup, give him an assist, give him an
Hmm.
opportunity to lead you, give him an opportunity to make a decision for the family, and don't criticize him. Ask him like, hey, honey, should we do this or this? And then if he chooses that, you go, okay, that's an amazing choice. I trust you. Something like that. Easy.
Yeah.
Start giving him the opportunity to build his leadership back up. Because
Mm.
right now he probably doesn't trust himself. Right now you probably bitch at him more than you would like to, because it's not your fault. You don't feel the man that you fell in love with. And so the feminine pokes the bear a lot. The feminine
Hmm.
loves to poke their man because really she's looking for that king to come out and kind of put her in her place respectfully, and see that he's not really going to get rattled by the shit that she says. But when
Yeah.
he becomes reactive, she's like, "God, what the fuck? Where
Hmm.
is he?" And so she'll do it again, and she'll do it again, and she'll do it again. And now you have two people
Hmm.
that resent each other because the man's not stepping up in his masculinity. So it's really about both parties kind of unlearning and reconditioning themselves to what those
Hmm.
real divine polarities are. The masculine's meant to provide, conquer, serve, hunt, kill. The woman is meant to nurture. She's meant to make the house a home. Now, that doesn't mean that the woman can't go build her empire. And I think a lot of people get lost in that when I say that these are the energies. But it's about you going and making $10 million a year because you want to, not
Yeah.
because you need to.
Yeah.
And that's the different energy, because the man has the intention to provide and give you the life that you want. And now you can go do something because you want to. And now you can use all of your money for vacations and fun. And
Hmm.
so that's where we want to get men back to, in my opinion. And I think
Right.
the more men that we can help, the more we can protect the king, the more men we can turn back into kings. Well, that's better parenting for kids.
Hmm.
That's more conscious men around to protect women. That's more relationship dynamics that get
Hmm.
saved. And so I really think that if we heal the masculine, we actually heal the world, because the
Hmm.
feminine will never be able to heal until the masculine heals.
Right. And yeah, there's so many layers to this, because it's like you have to heal the masculine. Then when you do that, there's the feminine in both of us and the masculine. And it's like, I know for me, I was operating out of the wounded masculine. And I kept being like, I want a provider and a protector. And like, this is what I need now. And I went, whoa, wait, wait, wait. Like, you're not even able to give this to yourself. How are you ever going to recognize it in an actual human being?
Right.
And so I think there's two sides of course, for yourself as females or males listening to this, that I don't know, I feel like men who have lost their masculinity may have known how to feel their feelings, and maybe they are in touch with their feminine, and now it's balancing the two and learning to master the other side. And I know for me, especially, you probably see this with women too, the ones that are like, just in my feminine and I'm not doing anything. It's like, okay, well, if you're coming to me to build a business, you can't just flow your way into it. Like, you're going to actually have to do shit eventually too.
That's not the feminine, that's the child archetype. And
Yeah.
they just confuse it. The child archetype wants to be passive, wants everything handed to them. The feminine is very, very intentional. She's very powerful and she can multitask like a motherfucker. So you're not in your feminine if you're not doing anything. You're actually just being a toddler. So it's time to grow up and it's time to get back into your divine energy.
Give you the spirit finger clap on that one. Because I think but there's Instagram. Like, we're seeing so much of it of masculine, feminine. Feminine is flow and ease and not doing anything. I'm like, yes, like, I
but
definitely
you missed the line after all of those reels.
Yes.
Buy my course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The masculine doesn't do anything. She attracts. She just sits and wealth comes her way. So for just $333, I'm going to help you do the same. It's just spiritual manipulation. That's the new world, the new age that we're in is spiritual manipulation, and it's just not true. And so again, we need more people that are actually in their divine masculine and their divine feminine to call these people out and say, no, that's not it.
Because no matter what, it's aligned action behind both, always.
Yes. Spirituality is not passive. Mm-hmm. Spirituality is not passive. It's extremely active. So that's that.
Love. Okay. Any final thoughts? Anything that you were kind of thinking that you wanted to complete a thought on, touch on before we close this out?
Honestly, no. But I think if I were to give the audience just something, I think that you don't need to take anything personally that another person does. And this is kind of like just going back to like our relationship talks or anything. It's never about them or it's never about you. It's always about themselves. But if you make their projection about themselves about you, now you're both speaking a different language and you're never going to find a solution. So I think it's just learning to detach from what people say in the moment and then let them have their episode. And then afterwards coming in with curiosity, not to really prove a point, but to just kind of be like, what was that? Where'd that come from? So that you guys can have better understanding. That goes for coaches, that goes for moms, that goes for partners and everything in between. I think let people have their emotion in the moment and stop trying to tell them that it's not the real thing and just let them get it all out and then unpack it afterwards. And you will get way more progress out of every relationship in your life.
So true. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. And thank you again. Like, the team call you shared was amazing. You guys should contact him to try to learn how you can hear that talk because it was so good. I don't know if you offer it anywhere else. Is there a place like, do you have a masterclass or something?
That call I offer just for my students.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then become a student of his because it was so good.
Yeah.
Anyways, where can people find you? Obviously you can send me your links, but I feel like did you call it Kinggard? What did you call it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be so helpful for so many men, especially the industry I'm in. There's a lot of women who end up making money. And then there's this gap that starts to happen. And I feel like we just don't know how to coach the men. We're like, I don't know what's happening. So to be able to have somewhere for them to go and start learning all of this could be so valuable. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I'll definitely link that. And then anything else, where can they find you?
Nope,
Instagram?
I'm good. I'm most active on Instagram, which is Nick Komodina. My YouTube channel is Nick Komodina _official. And so if you're really looking for tangible steps on how to consciously grow your business, I have a lot of free content that we put out on that YouTube channel. Other than that, shoot me a message on Instagram. And if you're in Carly's audience, I'm happy to serve you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time so much. Thanks,
Carly. Bye.
Bye.